We had a fantastic script. You know, we have one of the greatest directors of his generation. We have an amazing cast, and I just kind of went at it. You know, I had a lot of time to prep.
Until they've used it.
So, guys, Cillian, we have to talk about your first lead in another movie.
Yeah.
I know that your first encounter with him was auditioning for Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
But now you were the centerpiece of the film. So how did you absorb the very complex essence of Oppenheimer to show all his emotions and the fight in his head between existentialism and morality, so the audience could see Oppenheimer in a more objective way?
Well, we had a fantastic script. You know, we have one of the greatest directors of his generation. We have an amazing cast, and I just kind of went at it. You know, I had a lot of time to prep. I did an awful lot of reading. I did an awful lot of talking to myself, walking around, an awful lot of thinking about it. And just go at it, man. You just go at it. I can't give you one particular thing that it turned.
I can't actually. Right before he started shooting, he was walking around talking to himself, and they sent me out to find him, just so he would make the set on time.
He was taking a load, or what?
Yeah, I was just walking around the desert in my underpants.
And Robert, and in the other hand, it's your first time working with Nolan. I know that he had wanted to work with you so many years ago. And what was your best memory or learning of working with him for the very first time?
Well, it was being able to have pretty much all my scenes with Cillian, who I always had a feeling would be a great scene partner. He was doing all the heavy lifting. I was bouncing in and out, had some days off. But there was a moment where we were shooting a night shot in a 1947 Packard, and they were switching mags, and I wound up with an IMAX mag in my lap. And I feel like he did it on purpose. He knows I was raised in a family that worshipped film, and I'd gotten a little bit of ways from it during all the Marvel days, and I felt like he brought me home. I felt like he put a beautiful baby in my arms and said, "Isn't this why you do this? Because you love this?" And then after about 10 minutes, I said, "This thing is really heavy." And then we kept shooting.
And Cillian, the challenge of playing Oppenheimer was doing justice to his immense intelligence and moral struggles.
Yeah.
Having that huge intellect can be a burden, and that brings its own complication to his personal life and moral life. How did you plotting Oppenheimer's moral journey through his story?
That was the trickiest part, I have to say, in the whole movie, because it's such an unconventional kind of arc or journey that he goes on morally, and obviously we shoot the whole thing out of sequence, so that was the trickiest part. And again, that's where you feel protected and safe and secure because you got this genius director looking after, who's written the thing, you know. So I just would go to Chris and we'd figure it out together about where he stood at each point in the movie. But Chris used this phrase right at the beginning, which which stuck in my head, which was he talked about Oppenheimer like dancing between the raindrops. You know, that's what he was kind of doing morally, which was really interesting, and that I use that quite a lot.
And Robert, for this role, you had to change your look all the way to play your character. I think it takes an incredible lack of vanity to make yourself look the way Strauss does, including shaving back your hairline. But you're an expert transformation on character experience. So how did you build your character, and what can you tell us about this transformation?
For Louis Strauss, I did a fair amount of reading. And you always have to think about yourself in the context of what service you're providing for the overall narrative. And he is a conservative perspective. And I explored my own conservative perspective, and I find a lot of value in it. I think it is good to question authority. I think it is good to say, keep your nose down and be the person behind the screen. And I also, for the first time, really looked at what is it like to see all these huge personalities dancing through the raindrops. And what is it to imagine, just for a moment, how delicious it would be to destroy them.
Well, Emily, impressive work.
Thank you.
The idea of playing... Well, I'm going to start with Emily.
Okay.
I'm going to start with Emily.
Matt, average. Emily, incredible.
So Emily, The idea of playing a woman who refused to conform to the type of a feminine ideal of the time was what caught your attention. Katie was a genius. In fact, she found Robert her intellectual equal. But she also was very, very depressed, most of the time fighting dissatisfaction with motherhood, loneliness, and addictions. If today it is very difficult to deal with this, how do you think it was in the 40s without all the knowledge about human psychology that we have today?
It was a very, very different time. I mean, she was having to uphold an ideal that was just not natural to her. And I guess there was no soft place to land for someone to go, it's okay, you don't have to have children, you don't have to learn how to cook, you don't have to do this. I think it was just what was expected of women at the time. I do feel, because she was such a nonconformist, it was what was so impressive about her. I'm sure it was what was so alluring about her to Oppenheimer, but it was the thing that kept her at war with herself, like most of her life, and probably led to the severe drinking issues and anxiety and depression that she inevitably lived with. But such an exciting, visceral character, and such an impressive person to play. I loved playing her so much.
Matt, very, very good job.
Thank you.
So, Matt, everyone talks
You
about
have to say impressive, otherwise he's going to be like, impressive work, Matt.
Pretty good.
Matt, semi-good.
Everyone talks about Oppenheimer, but he wouldn't be the father of the atomic bomb without Leslie Groves.
Yeah.
So how did you capture the essence of such an important figure in human history who was involved in a destructive sequence of events, but all done for what he believed to be the right reasons? I mean, Leslie had to be the most firm and strict in these decisions.
Yeah, he was an interesting, he's probably the least morally ambiguous, he didn't really wrestle with any of these questions, which made it really fun to play. Also, in doing the research, Chris really captured in the script, and all those dynamics were really there. Everybody disliked Groves, which he was fine with. He really was about kind of completing the mission, and so it made it very fun to play. And there's some comedy in there. There's some fun. There's some levity, just because whenever you get a character that everybody dislikes who doesn't care, that there's always a good opportunity.
So much fun.
Yeah, for some fun. So I really enjoyed playing it, and and that tension between the military and the scientists, because they just had completely opposite philosophies.
And Emily, how did you build the relationship with Cillian to the essence between Opie and Katie? I ask this because you were all in the same hotel in the middle of New Mexico. This airport, Cillian were apart, almost by himself, with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. So
Yeah.
how did you make this relationship?
Well, I'd worked with Cillian before on Quiet Place 2, so we had a rapport and a shorthand that was just sort of there and intrinsic, and it was just, he's so joyful to work with, and transporting to be in a scene with. He's so mesmerizing. So I knew we had this kind of secret language, so I didn't need to drag him out to dinner with us. I mean, I don't think he would have been able to eat anything anyway. He was sort of nibbling on an almond in his room by himself. And we were eating quesadillas in the restaurant, but I knew Cillian and I would be able to explore this tumultuous marriage together in a very symbiotic sort of way, because I trust him, he trusts me, we work very similarly, and we're interested in it all. So it was great to talk about it with him before and then offset. And I had a couple of hangs with him where we'd just sit and talk about it, because as you can see from this film, there was always endless things to explore,
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Impressive work.
Thank you so much.